today I will be having a discussion on what is most probably the oldest language in the world today. This is Sanskrit. The discussion will unravel the reasons why maybe some people are just not interested in learning Sanskrit, and how we can inspire them to learn. And for those who know the importance of learning Sanskrit, why you may not be learning it. So we'll also be tapping into this. And finally, for those who are learning, how to inspire you further to share this age-old language to everyone, further and further, and give you more inspiration in finding more fun ways of teaching Sanskrit yourself. So to help me with this, I am going to be in conversation with a beautiful, inspiring young lady. Her name is Dhanvi Mehta ji. She is a Sanskrit coach, and her mission is to spread the Sanskrit language to the world. She was surrounded with Sanskrit from a very young age, her family being deeply rooted in the Indian culture. She continued learning, and she got a perfect 100% in the Sanskrit board exams. And now she is spreading Sanskrit by her platform called Dhanvi Sanskrita Sarvaswa. It's a unique space on Instagram and YouTube. With the support of her father, she has reached 2 million people through this page. So without any further ado, let's warmly welcome Dhanvi Mehta ji. Namo Namaha, Dhanvi Mehta ji.
Mahodaya, bhavati katham asti?
I presume you're saying, how are you?
Yeah, so I'm asking you, how are you? Bhavati katham asti? So if you want to reply to it, how will you reply in Sanskrit? So,
How would I reply?
yeah, so you will be saying, Aham Kushalini.
Aham Kushalini.
Kushalini, Uttamam.
Kushalini. And how would I say, how are you, back to you then?
So, if you want to ask me how I am, you will be saying, Bhavati katham asti?
Bhavati katham asti.
Uttamam. Aham Kushalini asmi.
Excellent. So that's a little start to some Sanskrit. We're going to tap into some more later. So we'll have a bit of a conversation later, and you can teach me some more later for sure. Before we start, I use the word Sanskrit, okay? And would you prefer to use the word Sanskrit or Sanskritam?
So, I would rather use Sanskritam.
Yes, okay, exactly. Okay, I'll try my best to remember to use
No problem.
Sanskritam rather than Sanskrit. Okay, so my first question is on this whole idea that Sanskrit, whether it's relevant, Sanskritam is relevant in today's time. I've spoken to many people there in Bharat, and many say, what's the point? You know, that the national education policy is getting stronger on this and wants to add it in as in the primary years for everyone to learn Sanskrit, as you may be aware. But why should we learn Sanskrit? You know, this old, is it relevant? What's your feelings on this?
So, Sanskritam is our root, it's our legacy. It's a priceless gift to us, and we always preserve gifts with care, don't we? We always preserve all the gifts that we receive with so much care and attention and love. So, Sanskritam is a priceless gift to us, so why not preserve it? So, coming to how relevant it is, Sanskrit is the key to open the lock for the vast treasure of knowledge that is the real wealth of this country, of India, Bharat. So, and Sanskrit has everything. So, I'll give you some reasons to learn Sanskrit. That's just some. There are infinite reasons to learn Sanskrit. That's what I feel. So Sanskritam has everything, everything. You ask it, it has it. There are many scriptures written in Sanskrit on vast subjects. I'm giving just a few examples. Like if we talk about philosophy, there's Srimad Bhagavad Gita. If we talk about Ayurveda, we have Charak Samhita. If you talk about surgery, we have Sushruta Samhita. Physics, there's a lot of verses that are in Rig Veda. If we talk about yoga, we have Patanjali Muni's Yoga Shastra. Poetry, drama, beautiful poetries and dramas. We have various literary works by Mahakavi Kalidas and so many other poets. Vishnu Sharma, we have Panchatantra stories, Mahabharata and Ramayana, two greatest epics of all the times. So now, your question would likely be why should we learn it since we are technologically so much advanced? So, when we are strong to our roots, there's nothing that can stop us from achieving what we want. So, Sanskrit is a sign of our rich legacy, of our roots, of our deep roots of our culture. Right? Sanskrit is a phonetic language. So, a mantra, when we chant in a specific way, they have certain effect on our brain as well as endocrine system, and this has also been proved. And the reason why we should learn Sanskrit even today is to revive the rich ancient culture that we have that was vanished as time passed by. So we need to revive that. In fact, I'll tell you, there's a whole branch of science in the Upanishad and Veda, which has purely prescriptions from a materialistic point of view. So there's this Brihat Samhita and others that discuss about various general topics like architecture, vegetation, plantation, horticulture, slopes, and so much more. So it's a whole treasure in itself. And it's not that it's not relevant today. All the things, like if I talk about the distance or the speed of light, there are verses in Rig Veda that show that. So our ancestors knew that way before we came to know, and way before science had it. So I guess these are some really big reasons to learn Sanskrit, and they prove how relevant these are. So there are some shlok that talk about preparation of a compound glue that can be used in temple architectures. So the civil engineers and builders of today can at the best help you build a house that can hardly last for a couple of centuries. On the other hand, the temples and architectures that are built by our ancestors, they still stand strong despite all the difficulties, right? And we can only just wonder about how much amount of research and development that can be done on these ancient works. We can advance much much further as a civilization if we had the freedom and openness to study the ancient works of these sages. So this can happen. How do we make this happen? This can happen only when we learn Sanskrit, because Sanskrit is the medium of knowledge and is the path to these treasures. Unless we know Sanskrit, we won't be able to decipher what our ancestors have told us, have gifted us with. And there are extensive references to surgeries, to various types of surgeries in Sushrut Samhita. Sushrut ji has been credited as the first surgeon in the world who used to perform surgeries without all the technological advanced equipments that we have in today's world. He used to conduct plastic surgeries, he used to heal broken noses, fractures, and everything. Everything is broadly mentioned in his treatise called Sushruta Samhita. So there's, if we talk about speed of light, we have references in our texts describing the calculations. Uh, Everything has been penned down by our ancestors. So Indian ancestors have greatly contributed to every topic under the sun. You talk about science, philosophy, physics, astronomy, astrology, spirituality, yoga, mental well-being, everything. So I guess this itself is a big and a very strong reason to learn Sanskrit, because it will open up doors to unseen realms of beauty and knowledge.
You know what you have just said, there was many things in that 2 minutes of conversation that I actually wasn't even aware. I'm learning Sanskrit myself. I'm learning it for the most common text to be able to tap into them and try to understand and interpret them myself. But the other vast knowledge and wisdom from the past that you just described, I hadn't even thought that this was a key to also tap into that treasure too. So that to me is again a reminder that we only know a drop of the ocean in respect to where Sanskrit can take us if we did actually learn the language and make the effort to do so, right?
So true. You just put it so well. This is just the
Mm,
tip of the ocean, a drop of the
yeah.
ocean. So there's a lot of repository of knowledge which has not yet been understood. Not even the tip of iceberg has been scratched today. Imagine how much more would be unearthed. In
Mm.
order to unearth these, we need to learn Sanskritam, and that's the only way.
So, following from this, why do you think, if you, there's the audience, I'm sure in the audience, there's people who know this importance, maybe not to the extent that you have described, but now they do. Now, but people are still resistant in learning Sanskrit, right? There's misconceptions of around this. So, why do you think this is?
So, like you rightly mentioned, there is a misconception, and that's why we see Sanskrit learners are so less, because there are still a lot of people who are resisting to learn Sanskrit. They feel, why Sanskrit? So, why Sanskrit? There's a general misconception that Sanskrit is dead. It's long dead now. It's of no use to the current world, or nobody uses Sanskrit anymore. Why should we learn it then? Or it is simply limited to mantra and shlok and spirituality side of it, which is not true. Like I just said, knowledge of a plethora of topics are in Sanskrit. Like I just mentioned, that was literally the tippest of the tip of the iceberg, I would say. So Sanskrit still holds relevance. People think that Sanskrit is tough, but it is not. Some people refrain from learning Sanskrit because they feel it is the toughest language and it's not our cup of tea to learn Sanskrit. So it's not that. Let me burst the bubble. People think it is tough, but it isn't. It's detailed. It is definitely detailed, and it demands dedication. And what doesn't demand dedication, right? If we are determined to learn keyboard or guitar, we are so determined and we dedicate ourselves so much to it. So it's the same. Same goes with Sanskrit, and it opens up to you once you decide to dedicate yourself. It just opens up to you like nothing else. I personally have been teaching students, right, Sanskrit. So it's their experiences. They too say this to me, that learning Sanskrit is such a beautiful journey in itself. Like every step you go ahead, there's so much that gets uncovered. So it's beautiful in itself. The entire journey is beautiful in itself, and it surely demands dedication and samarpan. आपको समर्पित हो जाना है उसको, and then just see how it opens up to you. It opens up so beautifully. The dots start getting connected. It's a beautiful experience in itself, which can't even be described in words. And Sanskrit is not dead. It still flows. It still flows through what the songs and classical dance forms. Like if you look at Bharatnatyam, they use Sanskrit songs for their performances or learnings. It still flows through the languages derived from Sanskrit. We say Hindi, Marathi, all the languages, Indian languages have been, most of the languages have been derived from Sanskrit, right? So it flows through it. So also, Sanskrit flows through a very big portion of our lives. The mantra and shlok that we recite every day, and the hymns that we use to praise God, right? So if it is still alive, then it is absolutely possible to revive it and make it popular once again.
I am just loving listening to your passion over this, and from what I feel, your students, of course, you're uncovering something within them. But to me, automatically, I feel you would be an amazing Sanskrit teacher. But I feel sometimes maybe the Sanskrit teachers, and no disrespect to anybody out there, but maybe there's Sanskrit teachers who are not inspiring others enough. So maybe they want to learn Sanskrit, maybe a student wants to learn, they go to a teacher, and by one or two lessons they feel lost. And it's very easy to feel lost in Sanskrit, right? So if it's not taught in a very step by step, going to their level, going to their level and teaching them from there, they can feel, okay, this is not for me. So what would you say to Sanskrit teachers out there, who are trying, but instead of inspiring them, because they may have so much Sanskrit knowledge, they can't come down to the students' level to give them that inspiration to learn further and continue. So, what would you say to these Sanskrit teachers?
You just mentioned a very important thing. I've seen a lot of people getting discouraged in the mid journey. They feel I don't know what's the way ahead. They feel very lost. Maybe because of that, like you just mentioned, the teachers have so much of knowledge and somehow they are not able to convey it to the students. And getting down to the students level, because the students are as fresh as a slate. They are just blank, and we need to feed Sanskrit part by part on their slates, right? So how do they make this possible? So when I teach, I'll say how I teach and how people learning with me. So what I do is I connect Sanskrit to a lot of modern day elements, so that makes the student feel connected to what they are learning. Unless we feel a connection, we don't really pay attention to things. We feel a connection towards learning an instrument, so we pay a lot of attention to learning it. We feel very much connected to God, so we pay a lot of attention learning mantra and shlok. So same way, Sanskrit, connecting the students to Sanskrit is the biggest task of the teacher right now. And considering the attention span that's going on these days, it's literally a 30-second attention span. You need to grab the attention of students in the first 3 or 4 seconds. This teachers, since they have a lot of knowledge, they can use that knowledge as a weapon to capture the students. Now how do they do this? What I do is, every class when I teach my learners, I every class give them one reason to learn Sanskrit, one beautiful subhashit that's like just out of the way, that blows your mind. I give them memes. I give them memes to create. I give them quizzes, Kahoots, and all of that. So to the learners who are very young, they'll enjoy it more. And to the elder ones who actually are matured enough, when I teach them shlok, which we will be also coming towards, there are beautiful shloks in Sanskrit. So I every class give them one shlok and explain to them how this is beautiful. That shlok, the teaching itself gives the student a reason to continue. So that's the best way to capture the students' attention and make them not feel lost.
I hope some Sanskrit teachers are listening to this, to get ideas, because I think the main important thing is that we have a lot more Sanskrit teachers who can inspire and keep the student learning, right, and not give up. And I think that's the main thing. Like I said, I think maybe the world is, people are convinced they want to learn, but then they have this block of actually learning, and that's what we need to break through now, I feel, very importantly, right? So yeah, that's, again, very I can see you're tackling and you're teaching in such a beautiful way, and building that right foundation, right? And that's really important, building that right foundation, because then the student can be left alone to their own devices and carry on. Once they know the grammar, they know things to the basics, right? um,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay, so next question on this, in respect to what I would like to ask is on the main benefits. In just in a nutshell, what would you say are the main benefits? Not just about, we know we've tapped into just is to unravel a treasure, which if is a key to unravel this treasure, but in respect to the human being, brain development. What would you say? Why is it so precious in terms of other aspects of the being?
Right. So that's a very important question. So I'll first narrate my personal experience with Sanskrit. So when I started to learn Sanskrit, I was very fascinated by mantra and all of that that used to be chanted in my house. So after that, I don't know, I felt a very different connection with Sanskrit, and I felt the need to pursue it more and dive deeper into it. And let me tell you, like, considering my 5 years of learning Sanskrit, if I consider right from even after 5 years, when I actually got matured enough to understand the effects of Sanskrit, my Sanskrit learning has still continued on, and it will continue forever. Sanskrit is, like I said, an infinite ocean. But so when we get matured enough at some point and we start to notice why I'm able to recollect things faster or remember things faster, we always start to wonder, how am I able to quickly remember things or memorize things or anything. That time I used to ponder, why is this happening with me? And that time I realized it's all because of Sanskrit. And this is my personal experience. My Sanskrit learning and my journey of learning Sanskrit has helped me powerfully capture things in literally a few hours, or maybe a lesser span of time than people usually take to memorize things. Or even if you talk about analytical aspect, have been able to analyze things at a deeper level, predict things, oh, this might happen, and that actually happens. I credit that all to Sanskrit, because your intuitions somehow, I don't know if that's true, maybe this might be a space for research. So maybe your intuitions grow stronger, and I've been able to fare my exams really well with lesser efforts, and more of happiness seeing the results. I've gotten better results, and like I am also an assistant professor. I cleared my exam and I scored 98.83 percentile in my exam. Uh, Within just 2 months of preparation, and that too just 2 hours, and sometimes not even 2 hours, just 1 hour daily. So I guess it has a long term and a permanent effect on the brain. That's my personal opinion. I have noticed that the more Sanskrit I studied and translated and deciphered and went over all the texts, the better my verbal memory seemed to become, and my memory in general also improved so much, so drastically. I can swear by that. Maybe this thing requires some research, or how that does that happen. But then I do know it is Sanskrit who has made it all possible. So there's one incident. There was an experiment that was conducted. So some pandits were called to do Vedic chants, and they chanted all of the Vedic mantras and something of that sort. I'm not clear on what exactly was the chanting, but they did chant Vedic literature, mantra or something. The structural MRI scanning was done, magnetic resonance scanning of the brain of the pandits, and to just study how this Sanskrit has an effect on the brain. So the results were, as usual, and without goes without saying, remarkable. So numerous regions in the brain of the pandits were dramatically larger than those of controls, with over 10% more gray matter across both cerebral hemispheres, and substantial increases in cortical thickness. So, most interestingly for verbal memory, was that the Pandit's right hippocampus, a region of the brain that plays an important role in both short and long term memory, it's concerned with memory, had more gray matter. So, our brains have two hippocampi, one on the left and one on the right, and without them, we cannot record any new information. So, many memory functions are shared by the two hippocampi. So, the right is, however, more specialized for patterns, whether sound or spatial or visual. So the large gray matter increases that they found in the Pandit's right hippocampus made sense. Accurate recitation requires highly precise and sound pattern encoding and reproduction. So naturally, when they conducted the study, they found out this. So it's now proved as well. It has a beautiful effect on the brain.
That again, like amazing insights just now you've just said, like things I didn't know. Like to me it reminds me a bit of when meditation, there's also research on meditation and the brain and the impact, right? But I actually can truly believe that this is also the case for Sanskrit and the mantras and how they're said. And that kind of leads me on to my next question on the natural, the natural impact of the sounds of Sanskrit, the letters or the sounds of Sanskrit, which I feel from my own experience of just starting to learn. I'm a little baby in my journey of learning Sanskrit, so that you know. But I just found when I first started to learn this, I smiled within because all my life I was born and brought up in a Western country, so English was my first language, and even though English was my first language, I always felt it was foreign within myself. I didn't ever feel like it was natural. I always have felt it's foreign, even to today. But when I started to learn Sanskrit and learn its sounds, automatically, also I'm an educator, so automatically I thought children need to learn Sanskrit first because it covers all the sounds in such a natural way that it is in harmony of a child's curiosity of using their vocal instrument, right? The human vocal instrument. So this is my feeling. What is your feeling of the sounds of Sanskrit? And maybe you can give a few, and I'm happy to repeat if you'd like, on how that would make you feel, it makes us feel together, when we say some of the sounds.
Oh, right. So, like you rightly mentioned, you feel a connection. Even if you are a beginner in Sanskrit, you still feel a connection that somehow I am connected to this language, the vibrations of it, the sounds of it. Very correctly said. And uh, if I were to give you an example, the varna in Sanskrit, the letters in Sanskrit are grouped into five groups. If we talk about the consonants, that is Vyanjanani. So, based on the pronunciation places in our body. So, where exactly do they get pronounced? That's also a structured one. So, we have ka, kha, ga, gha, ga. So, ka varga is consisting of these five letters. So, where ka varga is called kantya. Why? Because these letters get pronounced from here, from your kantha, from your throat, right? Deep down in your throat, they get originated there. So when you say ka, you feel a movement over here, ka. Then we have kha again, ka, kha, ga, gha, nga. All of these originate here, kanthya. That's why this group of letters that is ka varga is called as kanthya. Then we have cha varga, which is called as talavya. Talavya, when you say cha, cha, ja, cha, nya. So your tongue touches the roof of your mouth. Talu. We say talu, right? In other languages as well. So that's why the cha varga letters are called talavya. Then we have ta varga, a ta varga, right? Ta, tha, da, dha, na. So when we say ta, tha, da, dha, na, your tongue touches the part of your mouth that is on the upper side behind your teeth. Right? You say ta,
Da, da,
tha,
da,
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 dha,
da,
na.
da,
Right. So you'll feel
da,
your tongue touching this part. So that is murdhanya. Then ta varga we have. So let's actually recite these letters. Okay. So recite after me. So first I'll just tell you all the letters. So those are ta, tha, da, dha, na. Right. So say ta,
da,
ta,
da,
tha,
tha,
da,
da,
dha,
da,
na.
na.
Ta, tha, da, dha, na. When you say these letters,
On the
what can
same.
you interpret? We are touching the
Yeah,
teeth, right? So
yeah,
that's why they are
exactly.
called as dantya. That's why
Yeah.
they are called as dantya. And then finally we have pa varga, which consists of pa, pha, ba, pha, ma. Right. So a lot of people pronounce fa wrong. It is actually pa.
Yeah.
Ha. You have to take the help of both of your lips in pronouncing these. We usually get on the English side and we say for, right? Because fruit, fail, fall. So we say fa, but in Sanskrit it is pha, and that is why it belongs to Oshtya. So the pa varga is called as Oshtya. Why? Because Oshtha are lips, and we use lips, both of the lips, to pronounce these letters. So pa, pha,
Huh.
ba,
Huh.
bha, and ma.
Huh. Yeah.
So it comes so
So
naturally.
logical. Exactly. What about the vowels? Like the because even that word fascinating. Just the which is just literally you're not using anything, right? So that's also quite interesting. Like where you literally the first sound, what that natural sound without doing anything, right? Is that
So
correct?
naturally, yeah, it comes so naturally to us. We don't have to actually work for it, work hard for it to learn. Just comes like as if it
Correct.
has been there all these years, coming along with our soul.
Hmm. Amazing. And this is, to me, that was actually what really drew me to Sanskrit when I first started to learn, just the sounds in themselves. And again, something I don't think many people know. They actually look at the sounds, and because there's so many, they think it's complicated, but actually it's so natural and easy, right? When you get into it. And I think that's the interesting thing with Sanskrit, that it looks complicated, but actually it's so natural. I think that is the bottom line of it, right?
Very well put by you. It looks complicated, but it's so natural. I love that.
Well, let's carry on with talking about the oral aspect a bit more and the oral friendliness, because of course, in the first Sanskrit was initially just an oral language, if I'm not mistaken, right? And you can see how it would have been developed in a way that was orally friendly. And there's examples, and I got excited when my Sanskrit teacher talked about Sandhi, for example, use of so maybe you can talk a little bit about the usage of Sandhi and other ways of why Sanskrit is so orally friendly.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Perfect. So, Sandhi is a very, very important part of learning Sanskrit. So, when we speak, so why do we do Sandhis? So, what is the logic behind doing? What is the reason behind doing? So, when we speak quickly, we make many kinds of small and subconscious changes to the way we speak, right? So, these small changes let us speak more quickly and smoothly. We are always looking at how comfortably we can speak. So we our focus is usually the comfort area of speaking, right? So if I were to give you an example, so Sita Ashwam Ichchati. Okay, Sita desires a horse. So you usually find it uncomfortable to take a break between Sita and Ashwam. Sita Ashwam Ichchati. Now consider this. Sita Ashwam Ichchati. It becomes very comfortable to get in the flow and say Sita Ashwam rather than saying Sita Ashwam. Right. So it becomes very much comfortable to our mouth, to how we speak. So when we speak quickly, it is difficult to pause after the in the Sita and start again with the first of the Ashwam, of the word Ashwam. So by combining these two vowels into a single sound, our speech remains fast and so comfortable and smooth. It becomes so easier to say. So in Sanskrit, these sound changes are called sandhi. So what we actually did was and we did some process and then merged Sita Ashwam. So that process is called as sandhi. So which means sandhi means usually joining or junction. Sandhi refers to what happens at the junction of different sounds. So when you merge different sounds, when two sounds merge, what actually happens? Those are sandhis, right? So every language has its own sandhi changes, but Sanskrit sandhi is especially unusual because it is often written down. Like if I were to give you an example, the Sanskrit words Gajo and Gajas have exactly the same meaning. It means elephant, Gaja, right? So there is a difference where we will be using Gajo and where we will be using Gajas. So why this written down aspect of it? So why are Sandhi changes written down in Sanskrit? So Sanskrit speakers usually cared about the power of spoken language. So writing when it was used if at all it was used, it was meant to preserve the sound of spoken Sanskrit for the preservation. So that's why since Sandhi changes appear in spoken Sanskrit, they usually appear in written also. So that there's a means of preservation of those changing sounds. That is Sandhi. So it makes comfortable. Like if you were to consider Surya and Udaya, so it is hard to say Surya Udaya. But what if we say Suryodaya? There's an uninterrupted flow that happens between the two words, right? It becomes comfortable on our tongue, on our ears, and as well as on our mouth as well. So that's why we do Sandhi, and it makes everything even more comfortable.
Do you know what? I was always smiling when I was told about the Sandhi rules, and the reason why is because, like in the English language, if you sometimes shorten words, and this happens in certain parts of uh, places in the world where you might I don't know, use an example would be a word, isn't it, and we would make it in it, okay, in the part that I grew up in, and actually it's actually looked down on in the English language, saying, no, you're not speaking proper English. But in Sanskrit, that's actually a good thing, because and if you think about it, in it, that you're saying something which is more orally friendly, right? So I quite liked the fact that Sanskrit understands that, and that is not looked upon down, like you have to try to speak something exactly how it is, even though it's so not orally friendly, or it doesn't flow in a nice way in the palate, right? So I think it's just again amazing how the wise, the learned wise sages, they came up with this, and they were obviously humble, like they were okay to tweak things and change things, and I think that's such an amazing, beautiful thing about it also, right?
So true, so true. The whole language is all about your comfort. How
Yeah.
it just makes you so comfortable learning it. That it's like a warmth. It's like the warmth you feel in your mother's lap when you learn Sanskrit.
Mhm.
So you're like, I'm so relaxed. I don't have to worry about anything. Even the learning becomes so easier, so smooth. It's like the mother is caring so much for the baby. It's just like that. It makes you feel so loved and comfortable and warm.
You know what? This now brings me to mantras, right? And the power and the natural feel of mantras, and of course, like these vibrations when you say the mantras, and how it creates this perfect harmony. And people say, okay, through the mantras, this is the language of the divine, right? That the divine understands. And of course, how through the mantras, and you mentioned this already, how psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, it can transform your brain, right? We talked about it already. So what is it, what is it in the mantra that you feel? I mean, maybe you can recite a mantra and give us, the audience, an example.
Right. So when we chant a mantra regularly, so it is believed to wipe out fear, anger, depression. No matter how low you feel, you chant mantra, you hear some chants, and you're good to go within few minutes. And isn't that magical? Because just a couple of letters or a group of letters in the form of mantra have so much power to remove you out of depression or any negative feelings that you are surrounded with. So that itself, it is so powerful, and regular chanting of mantra, it really helps a lot, and even it helps to relieve disorders of the respiratory systems, digestive, reproductory systems, your circulatory systems, nervous system. It has a big impact on your nervous system as well. Like I said, depression all starts from your thoughts, right? And thoughts come from your brain is a part of your nervous system. So when you are chanting mantra and regularly properly chanting mantra, it really has a very positive and powerful effect on your nervous system as well. And this, again, I am talking from my experience. I When I was very young, and like I told you, there used to be mantras being chanted in my house, and that's how I have always had a mantra environment, I can say. So I know how powerful it is. I used to chant mantra and stotra daily, regularly, and it has helped me so much in my memory, in my overall well-being. And even when I used to be going for my exams, I literally had to work less hard compared to my classmates to prepare, and still I got good marks. It makes things so effortless, I'm telling you, and this is my personal experience. I used to start my preparations literally 2 months when I was 2 months away from my exams, and regularly I used to study when my teacher used to teach me. But then afterwards, when I used to revisit those concepts, I used to feel like, oh, I know this and I know that. So it used to be always there in my mind. So I guess that is all the power of mantra that I used to chant daily, and I still do. So Vedic chanting, again, it is said to help develop one's mental powers and strength, and that's why when people meditate, we use some mantra to meditate, right? Use some mantra to meditate. Surely it has some effect. That is why we use mantra as a tool to help us elevate ourselves more in the process of meditation. Chanting also improves your memory, like I just said, and power of concentration. You become so focused, you tend to analyze things so rightly, so quickly, and so effortlessly. So good, like especially people who are working into corporates or any work that demands a lot of your intellectual capacity. They definitely should resort to mantra chanting every day. That really goes a long way in living a stress free life, because I see a lot of people being overcome by depression or stress, work related stress. Then they feel they're not productive, or there's a lot of things on their plate and they're not able to capture all of these. So mantra chanting helps you in a very amazing way. It just takes away all your stress. You tend to have a very good clarity of things what you're supposed to do. And like we know, when you are into corporates and working, there are a huge amount of responsibilities on your head. You need to be conscious enough to make the right decisions, or it could just result in a loss, in a big loss for the company. You don't want that, absolutely, right? So you need to be very calm, and for that you need mantra. On the physical level, voicing a chant is in a prescribed way. If you chant something in a prescribed way, impacts the abdominal area, so from where the chant notes actually start, the lungs, the circulatory system, and so on. And chants have also been analyzed to be energy based. Like when you say some mantra or chant, it causes a vibration around, and the organism also vibrates in the tune with the energy and spiritual appeal of the chant. So um, if we were to recite a mantra, let's do Mahamrityunjay mantra.
Okay.
So it is dedicated to Lord Shiv, Lord Mahadev, who is Devadi Dev Mahadev, right? So it begins with Om. It begins with Om. Let's do that. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityormukshya Mamritat. So this is a Mahamrityunjay mantra. So chanting this mantra very regularly helps you in longevity. So your age gets longer, your lifespan gets longer. And if I were to tell you the meaning of it,
Oh,
so
please
what
do.
we chant, we also need to know what exactly it means, right? So we worship the three-eyed one. So we know Mahadev has three eyes, three netra too, and here is the third eye. So he's called Triambakam, three-eyed one. So we worship whom? We worship three-eyed one, who is fragrant, Sugandhim, who is fragrant and who nourishes all, Pushti Vardhanam, who nourishes all, like Urva Rukamiva Bandhanan, Mrityor Mukshiya Mamrita. So, like the fruit falls off from the bondage of stem, right? When a fruit
Mm.
falls, it falls from the bondage of stem. The stem used to bind that fruit, but then now it's free from the bondage, it fell. So, same in the same fashion, may we all also be liberated from death and from mortality. So that's why it is Mrityunjay mantra, victory over death, Mrityunjay mantra.
Do you know what I think? Of course, is saying the mantra without even knowing the meaning, it feels so powerful. But when you say the meaning, it also gives another feel another essence to the whole, um, to experiencing that mantra. So it makes it even more powerful, I think. But this is another inspiration for people, just to be able to. This is something I'm working on in learning some mantras, because I'm a beginner on that as well, and it's always so inspirational. But what I actually picked up in that whole conversation on mantras was something that parents need to, as an educator, I'm just saying this in terms of parents need to understand that a child can develop intellectually, via learning Sanskrit and having mantras in their surrounding. And I truly also feel this. Of course, on a scientific level, it'll be great if more and more research is done. You're proof of the pudding. You're one who is extremely intelligent, and you've given your story. So I do truly do believe that the mantras do have the power to develop your intellectual capacity. And I think, if that isn't enough motivation, I don't know what else is to learn Sanskrit, right? For
So
parents
true.
as well as children. Um, Moving on to something, uh, but the Bhagavad Gita. Um, is there anything you would like to share about the Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit?
Right. So, as we all know, Bhagavad Gita is the divine uh, Vyakyan, or the divine message, or the divine revelations by Sakshat Sri Krishna Bhagwan to
Mm,
Arjun. Right. When he was in dilemma, he was stuck. He didn't know what to do. He thought he was unsure actually of actually waging a war, and he thought. I don't want to kill my brothers. I don't want to kill my grandfather. All these are my relatives. How can I kill them? He was stuck in such a dilemma. So the Gita is set in a narrative framework of a dialogue. It's a dialogue between Pandav Prince Arjun and his guide, his charioteer. Krishna Bhagwan was a Sarthi, right, in the war. He had decided not to pick any weapons in the war. So, but then, if you know that incident when Duryodhan went to Sri Krishna Bhagwan, and Arjun was already there. So Duryodhan, they both had gone to ask help from Sri Krishna. So Duryodhan asked for his army. Krishna Bhagwan gave two choices: either you get my army, or you get me. Okay. So Arjun decided to have Krishna Bhagwan. He didn't want his army. He just wanted Krishna Bhagwan by his side. So Krishna Bhagwan said, okay. And Duryodhan said, I want the army. So he got Krishna Bhagwan's army. If he would have chosen Krishna Bhagwan on his side, maybe they would have won. But then he chose his army. So when the supreme power is with you, nothing can stop you from losing anything, right? So Krishna Bhagwan decided to not pick weapons. He said, I won't pick any weapons in this Dharma Yuddh, and I will be your Sarathi. I'll be your charioteer. I'll drive your chariot. So, at the start of the Dharma Yuddh, which is in Kurukshetra, it happened. So, between Pandav and Kaurav, a very, very big war in the history of humans, in the history of Bharatvarsh as well. So Arjun was actually preoccupied, and he was stuck by a moral dilemma. He was emotionally stuck, and he was despairing, lamenting about the violence and the death that the war will cause in the battle against his family. All those were his family members and Guru. So he was wondering if he should renounce the war and just give up and go away. So he asks Krishna, please help me with this. I'm stuck. I'm in a dilemma. So all the discourse that Krishna Bhagwan gave to Arjun, it forms a part of Bhagavad Gita. And when we call it respectfully, we say Srimad Bhagavad Gita, because it's a divine thing. We give it respect, and so like that. So Krishna Bhagwan actually counsels Arjun to fulfill his dharma. Bhagavad Gita stresses a lot on karma, on Atman, on soul, and karma. So he says, you are a Kshatriya, it's your duty to uphold dharma. Through what? So how will you do that? So through karma, selfless action, selflessly acting, and that is called karma. And then it also tells about the nature of soul, etc. This whole Bhagavad Gita it has 700 verses, and it is a part of Mahabharat, and it is created in Anushtup meter. So you must be aware of meters, right? And it is a poetic device in which we construct verses. So in Sanskrit we call it chanda. So this whole Bhagavad Gita, all the verses are in Anushtup chanda. So if there is a shlok, it has four quarters, and each quarter has eight letters balanced. Eight letters, eight letters, eight letters, eight letters. That becomes a whole shlok. So if we were to talk about the nature of soul, so nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakah, na chainam kledayantyapo, na shoshayati marutah. So if we talk about one quarter of it, nainam chindanti shastrani. So nai, nam, chin, na and the together, ti, sha, stra, ani. You get eight letters. Same way, all the quarters have eight letters. That is Anushtup Chanda. So this whole Bhagavad Gita is constructed in Anushtup Chanda.
That's something I didn't know. That's some again some. You may see behind me. There's
Oh, yeah.
some Bhagavad Gita there as well.
Wow.
Some shlokas.
It looks very beautiful. I was about to tell you. Background looks pretty.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating. Again, just new things that I didn't know about Sanskrit and Bhagavad Gita. So thank you for sharing that. Real amazing insights. Next thing, there was something you wanted to share on the reverse of Ramayana and Mahabharata, right?
Right.
So what is it? What is it that you want to share? This is a little surprise to me as well. You said there's something very intriguing that everyone needs to know.
Right. So it's called Anulom Vilom Kavya.
Mhm.
So it narrates the story of Ram, Lord Ram, but the shlok, if you read it in the reverse, relate to Sri Krishna. Okay, so we need to know who the composer of this marvelous verse is, right? So it is. Uh, uh, you can call him Venkatadhwari. Venkatadhwari. This Mahoday composed this verse, and it proves the encryption capability of Sanskrit. How you can encrypt using Sanskrit. So I'll tell you the verse. Vandeham Devam Tam Shritam Rantaram Kalam Bhasa Yah Ramo Ramadhirapyago Leela Mara Yodhye Vase. So if I were to tell you the meaning of it, so I pay my obeisance to Sri Ram, to Lord Sri Ram, who, with his heart pining for Sita, traveled across the Sayadri hills and returned to Ayodhya after killing Ravan and sported with his consort Sita in Ayodhya for a long time. Okay, now if we talk about it in reverse, so Vase was how the verse ended, the first verse ended. So we are going to read it ulta now. So Seva Dhyeyo Rama Lali Gopya Radhi Mara Mora Yassabhalam Karam Taram Tam Shritam Vandeham Devam. So I bowed to Lord Sri Krishna. Now it's about Krishna, who's just as a sporting resort of Sri Lakshmi Devi, who is fit to be contemplated through penance and sacrifice, who fondles Rukmani and his other consorts, and who is worshipped by whom? By gopis, and who is decked with jewels, radiating splendor. So when you look at it at first, in the ascending order, so it goes about saying about Lord Ram, describing Lord Ram. But then if you go ulta and if you look at it in the reverse way, it describes Krishna Bhagavan. So I am amazed at the poet's imagination. It just blows away your mind.
There's another proof that that highly intellectual mind that we had in ancient time, and down to what how it's just incredible.
It's too good.
Wow,
It just
that's
leaves you
amazing.
jaw dropped.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Dhanviji. Just to end, we are going to attempt, I will try my best in having a little bit of conversation. Please do feel free to correct me or help me along. But let's try to have a little bit of Sanskrit conversation, shall we? To
Yeah,
end.
right. Before that, if I may request, I wanted to show two verses that are actually fascinating. So, if
Sure.
I may explain to you about those,
Of course.
because why I personally feel close to these verses is because when I learned, I too was amazed. So, I feel this is something that needs to be told.
Hmm.
So,
Sure, go for it,
so
please.
there's one verse. It goes like Keshavam patitam drushtva Pandava harsha nirbharaha rudanti kauravas tatra ha ha Keshava Keshava. So would you ever imagine Krishna falling down and Pandavas being very happy about it? Not at all, right? It sounds so bizarre.
Yeah.
So Keshavam Patitam Drishtva, having seen Krishna fallen, Pandava Harsha Pandava became very happy, full of happiness. Harsha Rudanti Kauravastatra, and Kauravas are crying. They are feeling sad. Oh no, Krishna fell, Krishna fell. Ha ha, Keshava, Keshava. This doesn't make so much sense, right? We just feel strange. How can this happen? Kaurav, who used to consider Krishna as their enemy, how can they be very sad? They would be lamenting on how Krishna fell down. But then, if you dive deeper into it, that is where the beauty of Sanskrit lies. So, the letter Ka means water in Sanskrit. So, Ramah, Rame. So, Rame means in Ram. So, का के हो जाएगा, right? Just like Ramah का, if I say Rame would be in Ram. So same way, ka water, k in water. So k shavam in water. So dead body, having seen dead body in water. K shavam patitam, having seen dead body fallen in water. Patitam means fallen, fallen in water. Pandava harsha nirbharaha. Pandava would be cranes. So cranes became very happy. Crane Pandava also means cranes, or it could mean fishes. So someone that is born in water, they can also be called as Pandava. So they become very happy. And Rudanti Kauravastatra. The crows are crying. Rudanti Kauravastatra and making noises. Ha ha. Keshava, dead body in water. Keshava, Keshava, dead body in water. So, why the cranes are crying? Because they won't be able to consume the dead body since the dead body fell in water. But the crows are very happy. Pandava Harshan, the cranes are very happy because they will be able to consume the dead body since they usually stay in water, so they'll be able to eat the dead body despite that dead body being fallen in water. But then crows, they can't go in water, so they are crying that they won't be able to eat the dead body, so their food
Oh,
is gone in water. It just blows away your mind.
crazy. It's yeah, it's just too smart for the average intellect right now, isn't it? It's just yeah, it just amazes you.
Right, it's too good.
Yeah, incredible. So shall we attempt some conversation then? I'll
Yes,
try my best. I'm actually gonna look at some notes here whilst we go.
right. So, how do we go about it? You will be saying, you'll be
Let's
reading?
try. If I need any help, because you have given me a little pointer, so we can go for it. Just
Huh, perfect. So, should I start?
yes.
Okay. Namo namaha bhagini, suprabhatam,
Namaste, Bhagini, Suprabhatam.
suprabhatam, uttamam. I love that. I love that. Kathamasti bhavati. How are you?
Aham Kushalini.
Aham kushalini.
Bhavati Katham Asti.
Wow, I love that again. So I'll say, aham api kushalini. I am also good. Bhavati kutra vasati.
Aham Bharat Bharatadeshe Vasati.
Aham
No,
Bharat
Vasami.
deshe vasami.
Vasami.
Yeah,
Yeah. Vasami.
vasami. So
Vasami.
aham Bharat deshe vasami.
Aham Bharate Deshe Vasami.
Bharat deshe vasami. Uttamam.
Bhavati Kutra Vasati.
So aham Bharat deshe vasami. Aham api Bharat deshe vasami. भवत्यै संस्कृतं रोचते वा?
अहं संस्कृतम् अतीव रोचते.
So when you want to say yes, you say am. So am
Ah,
Sanskritam
aha,
ativa rochate.
okay. संस्कृतम् अतीव रोचते.
रोचते उत्तमं.
रोचते.
बहु उत्तमा अस्ति एषा वार्ता. So this thing is very good. Like I'm very happy to hear that in that sense. Tarhi bhavati agacchatu mama gruham aham pathayami. So what I'm saying is, then you come to my house. I'll teach you since you love Sanskrit.
I'd love to, by the way.
Ha.
So maybe I'm saying that now. Um, Nikshayane, Nikshayane,
Nishchayena
Nishyayane Agi Mish
agamishyami.
Agamishyami.
Uttamam. So it's a am nishchayena agamishyami.
Nishyana
Nishchayena.
Nishyana
Nishchayena.
Nishchayana
Ha.
Agami Shyama
Agamishyami.
Agavishyami.
आगमिष्यामि उत्तमम् तर्हि मिलामः मम गृहे मिलामः so we will meet in my house at my place
And then I say, yes.
मिलामः
Oh, Milama. Yeah,
हाँ
Milama. Milama.
मिलामः
Milama.
मिलामः उत्तमम् that was a beautiful attempt from your side.
Oh, thank you.
I loved it. I'm so happy. Seriously.
Oh, I'm trying. I'm trying. But
Uh, Trying itself is beautiful, you're getting there. That what is more beautiful than that?
oh, thank you. And Dhanyavada for your time today. And do you know what? I think this, if the audience listen through to the whole conversation, if they are not inspired, I'll be very surprised. I think you have tapped onto some very inspirational points on why you should learn Sanskrit, but also the fact that it can be learned, and like we said, is not as complicated as people think. And I sincerely hope your dream, and I'm here, and we are here, the platform is here to support you in your dream of taking, in manifesting, um, making the world know Sanskrit as a reality. So we hope it does come true, and we're there to support you, as I said. And so thank you for all your endeavors, and I'm sure this is going to inspire many. Namo Namah. And please do subscribe to the Festival of Bharat channel. Thank you.
Namo Namaha. And uh, I too feel grateful. I'm very grateful to you people for giving me a platform to spread Sanskrit. And you people are doing a wonderful job by bringing Indian insights on your channel so that people get back to their roots once again and they are motivated to pursue Sanskrit and Indian culture even more in their life. So, you people are doing a fantastic job. I'm thankful to you for having me on this interview. And again, like in Sanskrit, we don't have a bye. We always say Punar Milamaha. We will meet again. That makes
We'll
it
meet
even more
again.
beautiful.
Definitely. Thank you. And it's been our pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. Dhanyavadaha.
Yeah, bye.
Namaste. We hope you enjoyed this Chitti Media content. Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.